Hi, it's Ileana, and today we are going to look at the hidden door under the Sphinx to the secret underground Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records, and we're going to learn some Atlantean and Sirian history. The Sphinx contains a hidden door that leads to a secret underground Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records. I remember my past lifetime as Calypso, and Calypso had contributed to building the Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records under the Sphinx. He helped to build the two chambers. So Calypso was part Atlantean, part ancient Egyptian, and part Sirian. He came from Sirius B originally. That's where his soul originated. So he has a lot of knowledge about ancient Egypt, Atlantis, and other star systems, especially Sirius B. And today I was joined by Jaya, my Arcturian hybrid friend, who took me back to ancient Egypt, 100,000 years ago when the pyramids were built, the Giza Plateau pyramids and the Sphinx. So we're going to look first at that hidden door where the Sphinx is, and then more about the pyramids, ancient Egypt, Kemet, and what the Sirians and the Atlanteans were doing. The pyramids of Giza and the Sphinx could all be linked by a vast underground network of chambers and passageways, and the neglected door that leads behind the Sphinx, behind the ear of the Sphinx, might be a way inside in references to a document called Operations Carried on the Pyramids of Giza in 1837, allegedly written by 19th century Egyptologist Colonel Howard Weiss. According to Weiss's sayings, from various reports and circulation in Egypt, I was given to understand that the French engineers had made a considerable excavation. So they had made a considerable excavation, question marks, quote, quote, considerable excavation in front of the Sphinx, and that they had just discovered a door at the time when they were compelled to suspend their operations. This information was found by amateur historian Matt Simpson. Edgar Casey, in his prophecies, had also mentioned that there was a hidden door behind the Sphinx, especially behind the ear of the Sphinx. And the Sphinx used to have a face. It used to have a lion-eyed face. Humanoid, lion-like face. More humanoid shaped, but with lion-like features. Because beings from Sirius A and B, they had interacted with the Lyrans. They had Sirius Lyran hybrids. So they were influenced by different characteristics of having the lion face and the humanoid face sort of hybridized together in what the Sphinx looked like. Because right now, you can't really see the complete face of the Sphinx. Its erosion has eroded it because the Sphinx is more than 10,000 years old. It's almost 100,000 years old, according to Calypso. I had asked Calypso because he had been alive during the time the Sphinx was being built and the pyramids. That was almost 100,000 years ago. He was there, boots on the ground. He was an Egyptian priest and an architect. So he witnessed the building of the Egyptian pyramids, the Giza Plateau pyramids in particular, and the Sphinx, the Egyptian Sphinx. So Matt Simpson apparently got a hold of this documentation and this account was confirmed by the repeated assertions of the Arabs, several of whom declared that they had been present at the discovery and said that the door led into the body of the Sphinx, whilst others affirmed that it connected up to the second pyramid. And again, Edgar Cayce, in his prophecies, had said that there was a secret door under the Sphinx and behind it, leading to the Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records, where there's ancient artifacts that were put to be stored there for safety in chambers. So Edgar Cayce also knew about this. There were originally 3 stelae located in front of the Sphinx: the Dream Stela, built by King Thutmose between 1479 BC and 1425 BC, which still remains at the site, and 2 more stelae that were created by Ramses the Great over 2 centuries later, which ended up being taken to the Louvre Museum in Paris in the 19th century, and little has been spoken about them since. So again, ancient Egypt is Kemet, and the Atlantean survivors that evacuated Antarctica, because they did have part of Atlantis in a huge outpost in Antarctica. They evacuated Antarctica because the huge crystalline towers and obelisks got overcharged with energy, and it almost destabilized the core of the planet. So there was a sort of almost like a pole shift, almost a complete pole shift, that destabilized Antarctica because it was a tropical paradise at the time, and then the ice sheets and the glaciers covered it because it caused an ice age. So there was almost a complete pole shift. Almost a complete pole shift. But the Atlanteans had these interesting cylindrical oblong-shaped transport crafts that they could, and it was metallic silver, that they could board, and they had supply crafts as well with food, technology, DNA that they took from the Antarctica outpost, and they went to the jungles in the Amazon, Peru, near Egypt. They went to the Nile. So they were near Egypt, and their neighbors were the Sirians, who built the pyramids. They were one of the architects of the pyramids as well. Some Atlanteans participated in the building of the pyramids later on. So the last fall of Atlantis was between 12,000 years ago and 9,000 years ago, roughly. This is just some background information here. So there is an image of one of the 2 missing stelae in Weiss's book, Telling the Daily Star. There's a Sphinx on the top of a platform with Ramses the Great next to it and giving an offering. The Sphinx is sitting on top of what looks like a doorway. On the Dream Stela, there is also a doorway beneath the Sphinx, which backs it up. What does the other one show? It needs to be reanalyzed and brought back to life. It could shed more light on the doorway. So the Sphinx is sitting on top of a platform which has a door going underneath it. I think there is something underneath there. There are lots of tunnels under the Giza Plateau, and that's true. That's what we're going to see on my visit with Jaya to ancient Egypt, Kemet. There is a lot of tunnel systems under both the Sphinx and the Giza Plateau pyramids. I had to check this out for myself with Jaya. She took me back in time to visit ancient Egypt today. And today is March 4th, 2023. Amazing, just amazing experience. A source who is a science advisor in advanced propulsion systems by the name of Dr. Viktor Ivanovich says that they had gained access to files on one of the KGB's secret missions called Project ISIS. The source, Dr. Ivanovich, says that the documents revealed the Soviet government not only investigated whether ancient Egyptians were fully aware of extraterrestrial life, but they may have also lived among them. Yes, the Sirians lived in ancient Egypt, Kemet. They were the galactic humanoids. They weren't primitives. They were advanced galactic humanoids living in Kemet. And then the survivors of the Atlantean downfall also moved close to Egypt in the rainforests in the Amazon. Again, what is now Mexico. They moved there, Peru, and other places with a lot of water and green environments because they were used to water and green spaces. So according to the secret KGB files, Egypt was the perfect choice for an extraterrestrial race to live in ancient Kemet. Yes, the Sirians did live in ancient Kemet. So did the survivors of the Atlantean catastrophe. They moved there. And then their ancestors flourished and thrived in ancient Egypt. The objective of one of the particular missions was to find any knowledge left behind from an extraterrestrial civilization. The team of archaeologists were composed from the Russian Soviet Academy of Science. There are flat areas with little obstacles by the pyramids in Egypt is also near the center of the earth. Yes, the ley lines. The pyramids were built in conjunction with the ley lines because the Egyptian pyramids were power plants. They created energy to support almost a planetary gridwork network of energy distribution. Free zero-point energy. This makes perfect sense for establishing an outpost for planetary expeditions by advanced beings like the Atlanteans, Sirians, Meldekians, and other beings who participated in this galactic humanoid experiment colonizing ancient Earth. From past lifetimes as Calypso, I had built the Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records under ancient Egypt, Kemet, where advanced technologies were hidden, like the staffs of power that use crystalline and laser energies to focus beams of energy that can stun a person, make them fall asleep, and you don't need to use any weapons. Nothing that hurts anybody, but these staffs, they're the staffs of power. They can move water. They can separate water. They can control the air currents. They can make fire. They can make light. They can heat things, cool things down. They're an energy source of their own. There's also crystal swords, Arks of the Covenant, the red ruby refractory telescopes that can access holographic technology and temporarily shift cloaking technology so secret bases are no longer cloaked with that holographic technology on other planets. This also pertains to the secret programs on the Moon and Mars. There is also crystalline discs with planetary histories stored on them, orbs that are like time-traveling machines, and crystalline space arcs that the ancient Atlanteans had been traveling in, which are stored in one of the middle chambers leading away from the Sphinx. There's a lot of technology hidden in this Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records. And the Arks of the Covenant, they're original Atlantean technology that was brought to ancient Earth. There's communication devices inside the Golden Covenant box. There is staffs, there is technology that can clean up pollution from the waters, it can make food, it can replicate things. So this is technology that's life-saving. Also regenerative crystal technology that can heal humans, like crystal beds, stuff like that that's under the underground system in the Hall of Records. And different planetary histories about the Yucatan, about Peru, about ancient Egypt, Atlanteans, how Earth was colonized in this whole universe, how galaxies were created. That Hall of Records has that information. So it's all stored there. That's the planetary histories. There are space arcs. And that's, again, crystalline space arcs that the ancient Atlanteans had been traveling in, which are stored in one of the middle chambers leading away from the Sphinx. So it's in the middle chamber. There are 3 large chambers in total underground, one connected to the Sphinx, then there's the middle chamber, and also the other chamber under the Giza Plateau pyramids. This is a huge chamber, so there's 3 large chambers. And this makes up the Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records. The Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records is 2 chambers from what I was shown in ancient Egypt. The Egyptian pyramids were built almost 100,000 years ago as power generators utilizing gold and crystalline frequencies, along with obelisks to create infinite amounts of zero-point energy to power the cities, crafts, and other advanced technologies that the Syrian Egyptians had and the Atlanteans, as well as the triangular communication arrays on the top of the pyramids to communicate with the motherland planetary systems where the ancient Atlanteans came from in the Pleiades and Sirians, from Sirius A and B. In the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Atlantean, there is a description by Thoth that he had hidden his ancient Atlantean transport ship in Kemet, ancient Egypt, under the pyramids with technologies inside the craft that can change the world and protect the earth from invaders. That's what he said in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Atlantean. There are several circular ships, which could be arc ships, which are housed in the middle chamber of the Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records. So potentially one of them could be Thoth's ship. The Sirians also had ancient ships that used gravitational tractor beam technologies to deliver the large stones that were stacked, triangular shaped, to build the Egyptian pyramids. These pyramids were built by using sound frequency and laser beam systems that could melt and shape the stones into perfect blocks to create the triangular forms of the pyramids in Egypt, what we see today. What is left of the pyramids, because they have been eroded. At one point, they were covered with a white substance that electrified the limestone blocks, and it would amplify the energy sources of the pyramids. That has since eroded because 100,000 years has passed. Again, the Egyptian pyramids are older than 10,000 years. Recently, scientists in Egypt have discovered a 9-meter hidden corridor near the main entrance of one of the Great Pyramids of Giza. This is a corridor measuring 30 feet in length. It's 30 feet long. The discovery was made as part of the SCAN project that uses non-invasive technology with sensors to look into Egypt's ancient and mysterious structures without causing any harm. So this is the current model of what was discovered in this hidden chamber. And this is Great Pyramid facts. I wanted to show you guys what this looks like and what it is. So this is a gallery. It's the King's Chamber, and above that, the hidden chamber. This is an amazing discovery indeed. And it's a descending passageway, underground chamber, but it goes even deeper than the pyramid itself. This underground chamber is not the only one. It goes far more deeper. They've only found the surface level stuff. There's so much more than just under the pyramid. You have to go really deep down to the tunnels. Past the mazes, that's where the Hall of Records is. So there's a big void, a small void, a grand gallery, King's Chamber, Queen's Chamber. That's typical in the Great Pyramid, Khufu's pyramid, but that's just the surface level stuff in the shafts. Much deeper under the pyramid. You have to go deeper. That's where the real stuff is. The artifacts, the Atlantean, Egyptian, Syrian artifacts. Much deeper. So this is what I've been working on to give you guys an overview. So this is the Sphinx, and this is what Dr. Ivanovich discovered in those secret KGB files. This is exactly what he was talking about. There's the Sphinx, looks humanoid, lion-like, and behind one of the ear of the Sphinx, there is a huge protrusion, and there's a locking system, mechanism system. Once you push something near the paw of the Sphinx, behind the ear, and there's another mechanism on this platform, and there's the chamber systems, the 3 chambers. There's the first chamber under the Sphinx is the refractory ruby telescope that can decloak holographic technology and reveal hidden bases and other secrets. There's the staffs of power. In the middle chamber, those are the Atlantean crystalline arc ships. Some of them were circular, some of them were round, some of them were different shapes. I found a circular image. It's just a representation, but it has crystalline technology inside of it. And I suspect one of these is Thoth the Atlanteans craft. Thoth the Atlanteans craft, one of the bigger ones. And there's a third chamber, which has another refractory ruby telescope and other things in it. I tried to model this as best as I could. There's also crystalline swords. There's the staffs of power. And I just modeled a few things to show you guys what it looks like. The technology I'm aware of as having a past lifetime as Calypso, what I had put into the Hall of Records, and modeling the 3 chambers and the pyramids and the Sphinx. The Giza Plateau pyramids, the Sphinx, and the 3 chambers underground, deep underground, under the Sphinx, under the pyramids. And again, this is the pyramid systems. The major pyramid and 3 sub-pyramids beside it. So it's a whole system. They built many pyramids because it was power plants to give them a worldwide grid system of virtually unlimited energy sources to be able to power their cities and to power outposts, because Egypt was huge. Atlanteans, Sirians, they had several different outposts and cities. Think of the Mayans. Think of the Aztecs. Think of the Anasazi. They are ancient ancestors of the Atlanteans and the Sirians. Mayans, Aztecs, Anasazi, some of the Native American tribes as well, because they have tales of extraterrestrials teaching them things. Connection and communication with the stars, the solar system. Think of a lot of ancient civilizations who were influenced by the Atlanteans and the Sirians on Earth, who taught them advanced knowledge and information. That's what was going on ancient Earth. So I am going to talk about here who were the Atlanteans, Lemurians, and the Sirians, connections to ancient Egypt. Atlanteans, they were fifth to eighth dimensional galactic humans who came from the Pleiades, some were Mayans, to live on Earth as part of the Galactic Peace Envoy and Genetic Stabilization Project. The Atlanteans had crystalline spaceships, or space arcs, and could travel multidimensionally through space with beyond the speed of light technologies. Atlanteans were energetically and on a soul vibration connected to the natural crystalline matrices that they had brought to Earth from the Pleiades and other star systems to embody more physical planetary aspects of being in corporeal bodies. Atlantean civilizations included the Andromedans, Arcturians, Pleiadians, Meldakians, Lyrans, Sirians, and several other advanced ancient races that had agreed to the Peace Project and preserving the higher multidimensional DNA stranding systems that were able to hold the frequencies of 5D to 8D aspects of energy in light bodies, and also corporeal bodies when connected to the crystalline technologies. So the original Atlanteans lived for hundreds to thousands of years in lifespans. There was also Mintaka aquatic beings that came to live in the oceans as mermaids and had interacted with the Atlanteans on healing projects, working with crystals in the Atlantean crystal healing temples. Atlantis was founded 2 million years ago. It lasted in about 4 epochs and fell because of the crystalline technological misuse between 12,000 and 9,000 years ago, with the survivors moving from Antarctica to ancient Egypt called Kemet. And Thoth called Egypt Kemet. That's where his spaceship traveled with his trusted advisors. And they also settled in Egypt. Some of the priests and priestesses from Atlantis settled in Egypt and worked with the Sirians. Lemurians originally came to Earth first in their light bodies and then manifested crystalline bodies with aspects of physical corporeal bodies that could interact with everything living on Earth, especially the crystals, whales, dolphins, and the living essence of nature in the planetary core on Gaia. Some of the Lemurians had come from different universes to see what the Galactic Peace Project was all about and what types of higher dimensional genetics were being included as part of the Galactic Envoy projects in Atlantis to try to have lasting peace between the various galactic beings that now lived on ancient Earth. There were already somewhat intelligent humanoid species living on Earth, for example, something like the Neanderthals and primates that the Lemurians did not interfere with. Lemurians came to Earth almost 3 million years ago. So there were humanoid beings already somewhat intelligent living on ancient Earth, and the Lemurians did not interfere with them at all. Sirians. The Sirians are the architectural builders who came to Earth from Sirius A and B in their triangular craft ships, which were gold-plated to protect from radiation in interstellar space. Sirians were 4D to 7D, and they were connected to the golden light languages and symbols, being one with the universal life flow, connected to Source Creator in universal knowledge downloads and uploads. Sirian civilizations flourished in ancient Egypt about 300,000 years ago, and they had built the Giza Plateau pyramids and the Sphinx about 100,000 years ago, along with integrating the crystalline gold capstones on top of the pyramids and anchoring the energy frequencies as inputs going into the pyramids, limestone and basalt stones, thereby utilizing the pyramids as power generator plants to produce endless amounts of zero-point energies, which were transferred into the crystalline obelisks as part of a gridwork system which powered the Kemet cities. And now we're going to look at ancient Egypt, Giza Plateau pyramids almost 1,000 years ago. This is where I went with Jaya to ancient Egypt today, March 4th, 2023. I like to check everything to verify information. I mean, it's great what I read in that research information discovered by Dr. Ivanovich and Matt Simpson and other information that I included. But let's take a look at what happened 100,000 years ago. Sirians had spread out from Atlantis, moving to ancient Egypt, Kemet, to build out the various ancient pyramids about 300,000 years ago. Close to 100,000 years ago, the Giza Plateau pyramids and the Sphinx was built by the Sirians. So there were multiple epochs where pyramids had been built on Earth. It started with the original Atlanteans 2 million years ago, also pyramids being built on Mars by the Maldakians, who had visited Mars as well. So it's not the first time that the pyramids have been built on Earth. The Giza Plateau pyramids had triangular and square gold crystalline capstones on top of the pyramids, generating energy for the pyramid power plants. Currently, the gold capstones have been removed from the pyramids and have been hidden in inner Earth. The capstones were removed about 11,000 years ago. These golden-plated capstones were also used as communication frequency devices to communicate with the motherland planetary systems from where the Atlanteans and the Sirians had originally come from to colonize Earth. As well, the capstones were used to boost the various stone and metallic Stargate portal systems that both the Atlanteans and the Sirians used to travel on the planet and off-world. Sirian transporter ships had used tractor beam frequencies, stacking the limestones together in perfect geometrical forms for building the pyramids. The Sirian ships would be connecting to the power grid system in the pyramids to charge their crystalline nacelle systems. The ships would also collect various amounts of energies from the pyramids in order to transfer those energies as power supplies to more remote cities that were further away from the pyramids for their energy output needs. The pyramids are connected to the crystalline technologies powering the Kemet grid system 100,000 years ago. Sirian triangular spaceships had shielding and cloaking technologies that could protect the energetic grid system that the pyramids were supporting in Kemet, and the ships could also draw on energy frequencies from the planetary ley lines to boost the efficiency of the grid system if needed to divert more power to it. The pyramids and crystalline obelisks act as the power generators for creating the unlimited supply of zero-point energy. There were underground systems that the Sirians had carved out with laser technologies underneath the pyramids that housed the various chamber systems that produced electrical charges being generated to route incoming and outgoing energies being sent to the pyramids as a flow state system. Inside the chamber units were the crystalline obelisks that generated the electrical charges to route energy to the pyramid power centers. Almost each large pyramid had its own underground chamber with an obelisk inside it to route consistently the flow of energy transferred between the pyramids. This was a complex underground power plant system. The underground power plant system was connected by a larger underground network of systems that consisted of tunnels and corridors to reach the power plant generators and also to enter into the halls of records located under the larger set of Egyptian pyramids. Under the underground network system of the tunnels and corridors were built the two sets of chambers with the ancient Atlantean and Sirian artifacts housed inside the Hall of Records. The Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records had artifacts stored inside it in the two chambers that were the staffs with the crystalline and laser technologies, golden arcs of the covenant with transmitter golden rods transferring energies to the power grid systems connected to the pyramids, crystal swords, holographic technologies, etc. Much more technology, as was described earlier. There were platform connectors between the two Hall of Records chambers and somewhat of a maze system network to hide the chambers so enemies could not easily find the locations leading to the chambers. The system of tunnels and corridors interconnected together, making it easy to travel between the underground power plant generators to the surface, where the pyramids were, as well as the chambers with the Hall of Records. In between the underground system of tunnels and corridors, there were several crystalline obelisks placed with orb fields surrounding them to balance the energy and frequency outputs of the other obelisks that were the power generator network in the chamber vaults underneath the larger pyramids. This was done so there would be energetic balance between all the power plant generator systems that were connected to the pyramids, so there would not be any energetic overloading of these energy centers in the underground systems deep below the pyramids. The Sirians always had three large triangular crafts stationed several kilometers near the underground tunnel systems and the corridors, monitoring the input and output of the energy power levels being produced by the obelisk power generator network with its crystalline frequencies, so that there would not be any energy surges or overdraw of energy overloading the crystalline capstones on top of the pyramids on the surface. At times, the Atlantean guardians of the crystals would visit the Sirians and the Sirian engineers to see how the power grid systems were being built and to watch the integration of the crystalline technologies being connected with the pyramid power plants and the obelisk crystalline generators that created their own unique forms of piezoelectric frequencies and tuning energy and the tuning energy capacitors. So they had energy capacitors. Again, think of piezoelectric frequencies that these crystalline obelisk generators produced and tuning the energy capacitors that worked like quantum light circuitry fields. So they worked like the quantum light circuitry fields to power anti-gravity devices like air cars and hover planes. They had flying cars and planes. In ancient Egypt, they had that because the Sirians had advanced anti-gravity technology and devices that powered their systems in the combination with crystalline technology. So this is what Jaya showed me in ancient Egypt. Everything I just described, I drew this as I was in ancient Egypt, seeing this. As I was there, I was observing everything carefully. This was time travel. She took me back 100,000 years. And I tried my best to remember everything that I was seeing so I could draw it as clearly as I could. And this drawing was messy in the beginning because I was just trying my best to bring in the impressions of what I saw when I went to the past in ancient Egypt. So it was messy in the beginning. I cleaned it up and the only thing I cleaned up was a few messy wiggly lines that weren't supposed to be there. Because again, I was drawing this so quickly from what I had seen in the past in ancient Egypt and Kemet. And this is 100,000 years ago. So you can see the triangular Sirian ships, you can see the obelisks, you can see the pyramids, the capstones, the chambers, and you can see the Atlantean Egyptian Hall of Records, the two chambers, the passageways, the corridors. It's exactly as that KGB file record explains. And it's practically the same as what I remember from Calypso's past lifetime as well. So there's consistency here. And then, so that's ancient Egypt, Giza Plateau pyramids, almost 100,000 years ago. And Jaya showed me some images of what these pyramids were like when they had the golden crystalline capstones on top of them. They would kind of float above or be on pedestal platforms. Some of them were floating above the pyramids, and that created an energy balance sequence. Because again, the pyramids are power generators. So that made sense that a lot of energy input and output was going back and forth through the connection of these capstones. This is the Syrian Egyptian pyramids with the golden crystalline capstones on the top. That's what this image is. And then again, this is the capstone, triangular, golden crystalline devices that were directing the energy frequencies of energy and power generation, power supply through the pyramids and the capstones working in conjunction together. And this is a pyramid generator power plant creating this energy. And some of the pyramids had water around it, acting as capacitors and amplifiers to the pyramid and the capstones. Water was involved because water generates energy and power if you use it the right way in a generator power plant system, which the pyramids were. So they knew how to use water with the pyramids and the energy and the crystals to generate zero-point energy. So this is the golden crystalline capstones on pyramids emitting energy. Could power ships. It acted like communication systems to communicate off-planet. There's a lot of possibilities and variables what you can do with these power plant pyramid generators. And some of them were made out of alloys. Inside the pyramids there were exotic alloys found that are nowhere to be found on Earth. On the outside of the pyramids, it was mostly stripped. Some of the pyramids weren't made of limestone. It was made out of exotic material alloys that don't come from Earth, that don't come even from this galaxy, that the Atlanteans brought with them. And it's hard to find these elements. Some of these elements are on the extraterrestrial ships connected to crystalline technologies, allowing these ships to go beyond the speed of light. So they had some metallic-like pyramids with these exotic alloys covering them on the surface and inside connected to the crystalline capstones and that technology. This is just an example of what it used to look like. this is how it looked before. You can't find any of these pyramids anymore. They were dismantled because they produced a lot of energy and they didn't want it getting into the wrong hands. So they did dismantle these types of pyramids. But they had them in ancient Egypt before, and also they had them 300,000 years ago and 2 million years ago when Atlantis was first founded. And this is again more pyramid structures, what it used to look like in ancient Egypt. Some of this is underground. Some of it is on the surface with obelisks and the power generator systems. So this is a Syrian Egyptian pyramid power generator system in Kemet. This is what some of these pyramids look like. They were perfect triangular conjunctions because everything worked in balance in frequency and energy. It was almost perfect how this worked. And this is one of the power plant centers. And some of these ships, what they looked like, they were triangular or square. Some of the cargo ships that the Sirians had were more square and some were more triangular shaped. There was different landing platforms where they can land and lift off, because everything was anti-gravity for the crafts with crystalline technology and gold as well. So they had platforms, landing platforms and docking platforms beside the centers. So this is a Syrian Egyptian pyramid power plant generator and the centers in the middle of Kemet, what it looked like. So I wanted to share this information because there's so much interesting stuff about ancient Egypt, the Atlanteans, the Sirians, the halls of records, and how the Sirians interacted with the Atlanteans, and a bit about Lemurians as well. So thank you so much, and namaste.